Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but when I say to you, what did you mean by that? Did you mean what you said? And you say, yes, of course I did. What I say is what I say. You're appealing to logic. Who are you? Are you Jack or Bill? Bill. Do you mean Bill or not Bill? I mean Bill. You're appealing to logic. If you didn't appeal to logic, you couldn't communicate. You couldn't function in a world with a reference to any particular object. You wouldn't know whether you meant that one or another one. Logic is descriptive of every kind of action, thought, or word that we use. The basic law of logic is the law of identity. A equals A and not non-A. So you cannot give any attention to any particular A without the law of identity. You couldn't ask your question were it not for the law of identity. Ooh.
Yeah, but that's good as a basis, but
yeah.
It doesn't reach into all the aspects.
Well, is there any realm of experience that isn't touched by that? Experience has to do with particular things that have identity. Now, I think I know what you're trying to get at, which may be that deductive reasoning, deductive proofs, are more like a parade ground drill than the actual tactics of life. Yeah, I buy that. I agree. That's what Wittgenstein says. It's his figure of speech. I think it's right. But the thing is that parade ground drill teaches you the kind of precision that's going to be necessary in the tactics of life. You see? Let me put it another way. What he's trying to do is to develop in scientific fashion the philosophy of life. Sure, look where he's going. But why in scientific fashion? Well, because of the epistemological vacuum of those days, remember? You see? Because of the crisis of authority, where the whole theme of the 17th century, Bacon, Hobbes, Descartes, Spinoza, is the answer in this epistemological vacuum is science. Hobbes. You know, how can we ground politics to avoid all this infighting? Get a scientific basis for politics. You see? Well, Spinoza wants a scientific basis for a philosophy of life. Now, I suspect in the light of that what you're saying is you don't think it's very practicable or practical to have a scientific basis for a philosophy of life.
Well, not necessarily. Yes, practically it works out, but just to follow with that.
Well, do you want anything less than blessedness? That's where it works out.
In theory. Should.
Oh, now you're saying you...
I mean, to use the analogy about the military, I mean, you can think, well, this strategy is going to work very bad.
Yeah, but you see, now your objection is not to logic, but to the conclusions he draws by this logic. And if you object to that, you've got to find where's the mistake that he made. Where's the proof that is invalid? Which are the premises that are false? Because if you agree in principle to the laws of logic, then granted certain premises, the conclusions follow. If the premises are true of reality, so are the conclusions. You see? And so, you see, I have to defend Spinoza in that regard. If you say it doesn't have any bearing on life, what's this? If you say, I don't like those conclusions, the way he draws them, well, specifically, why not? Now, what went wrong, you see? And I hope that we begin to see that if you don't like what Spinoza's doing, you have to find the hole in his logic. Don't throw out logic. That's the baby with the bathwater. If you throw out logic, you'll never think about anything. You'll never do anything. You'll never be able to say, am I not? You really have a problem of identity, you'll say. No, the problem isn't logic, it's something with his use of logic. Now, it may be that this kind of scientific method that he's using is the wrong kind of method to use on a philosophy of life. Well, all right, to understand why he does it then, put him back in his historical setting with that epistemological crisis. Where else does he go? Say, well, to his Jewish faith. Well, isn't that what he's doing, but finding a basis for what he understands of the Jewish faith? Yeah. Now you can criticize him, of course, that he comes at it this way instead of straight from the Old Testament scriptures. Well, you see, he has problems with the Old Testament scriptures. That Tractatus, what was it called? Tractatus Theologico-Politicus that he wrote. You see, posed some of the problems he had with with Orthodox Judaism. So he shut himself off from that route, the Old Testament revelation as it is. But what's the intent of the Old Testament revelation in talking of the Jewish view of life? Well, it's to show us that love of God, obedience to God, is blessedness. So that's where his Judaism comes through, you see. Now, I've been playing devil's advocate because I don't think we can criticize until we understand. You see, so much criticism comes from not understanding. Yeah, I disagree with some of his definitions, therefore with some of the axioms. And I have all sorts of problems with the methodology in general. You see. I think there are other ways of handling the epistemological vacuum. Yeah.
How thoroughgoing is his determinism? In a couple of places, he talks about pity and repentance being absolutely useless. And so that would, on one hand, you could say, I burnt my hand on the stove. Well, I'm not going to repent of that act. I'll put my hand back on the stove. I mean, that's...
Well, you know, why cry about spilt milk? That's what he's saying. What difference is it going to make?
I mean, does he leave room for learning from experience?
Yes, you'll be conditioned by it.
Conditioned, but not...
Well, conditioned by it is to say there's a causal process in which past experiences affect future behaviors. But when you're talking about repentance, being sorry for something or being sorry for somebody else, pity as well as repentance, he would say, no, those are passions which can overwhelm us and keep us from clear-headedness, you see.
So the past is not something to be remembered.
Oh, he doesn't say it's not something to...
planning for the future, it's just...
No, he doesn't say that. You see, repentance is not just remembering so that you plan for the future. Repentance is an emotion of overpowering remorse that holds you in bondage. That would be his way of putting it.
He seems to speak of the emotions constantly in the extreme, rather than...
Well, yeah, then maybe we need to get into his discussion of emotion so that we can see that. He makes a distinction between passions and some other emotions. Yeah.
I'd like to, if he's saying that you know, pity and remorse is not,
Yes.
is not good, with the determinism, it almost seems like you don't have any choice in the matter as to whether you are going to feel pity or not.
Yeah.
Or how's that?
Well, you see, while you're saying to yourself, now, if this is determined, I don't have any choice but to feel remorse, you are beginning to reflect on that, and another line of thought begins to emerge in your consciousness, which also determines your attitude and response. Namely, what I need is not just overpowering emotion. Now, let me get clear about this, and you're after some clear and distinct idea, you think? So you do something about it, which shows that you can. But can doesn't imply necessarily free will. You see, because you can, right, in the sense that there are other causal processes leading you to do it. There are things you can do for different reasons. I mean, I can fall off the roof of Blanchard if somebody pushes me. I can. I sure hope I don't. You see. But not every can is a can of I choose freely.
Just two quick comments and questions, actually. About his rationalistic trends.
Yeah.
You made a comment something like, well, what in experience can you find in logic or something of the sort? Well, the first question I have is, I would just ask, well, it seems to me that almost all, not all, but a great deal of what we consider pure reason is from experience, in the sense of like the law of non-contradiction. I mean, it's interesting to me that whenever they try to prove the law of non-contradiction, they go to experience and say, well, obviously, look, the man can't be here and a man can't be here at the same time, or something like that. And so that's my first question, is just that it seems like a lot of this is based, I mean, a lot of rationalism actually has its roots in empiricism, in the sense that even what he says in his words, I can only think in words.
Let me answer that first, the way he would. You've got to distinguish between the logical status of an idea or a belief and the psychological process by which we acquire it. I mean, how do you learn that 1 + 1 = 2 as a young toddler? Oh, from seeing this and, you know. The psychological process is one of, if you like, empirical learning. But the logical status of 1 + 1 = 2 is not such that it's just an empirical generalization. Now, you see, the term a priori, we don't always use precisely, clearly, distinctly. And I plead guilty, you see, because technically the term a priori has reference, as we'll find when we get to Kant, and I've been saving it until then, has reference to what is universal and necessary truth. A universal truth that's logically necessary and cannot possibly be false. Now, you may become aware of that truth through somebody telling you. You may become aware of it by something in experience that brings it to your attention.